There was 16 inches of clearance between the dirt floor and the floor joists. We had a tornado hit like right at noon on a Sunday. Problem solving and helping others is exactly why we're all in this business. There's nothing better than not having to bid against 5 or 6 different contractors.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Retrofit Radio, the podcast designed to highlight the voices behind better buildings. Today's guest is Gary Duden, an HVAC professional who's been in the HVAC industry since 1989 and is now using his expertise to teach others in the weatherization field. Without further ado, please enjoy the episode.
Good morning, madam. I am Gary Duden. I am a senior trainer at Indoor Climate Research and Training. We're part of the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program. I've been specialized in HVAC for almost 35 years. I started when I was 13 years old in 1989. So my job is to train and teach the HVAC portion along with other portions of the TCP certificate program for the Home Weatherization Assistance Program through the state of Illinois. And when I'm not teaching, I'm answering calls and going out to the field to help different techs, different assessors with anything that we can help them with what we teach. So that's what I do on a daily basis, and I love my job, and it's really fun.
How did you get into weatherization?
I got into weatherization about, I believe has been 14 years ago. So my brother started an HVAC company back in 1989 in our little hometown of Gifford, Illinois. And I was, like I said, a freshman in high school. I decided that this would be a good opportunity between summer vacations or summers off from high school. So I worked all summers, any breaks that we had, and then all through college also. And then when I got done with college, I wanted to be the Cubs broadcaster. I wanted to be Harry Carey, and that didn't work out. So my brother asked me back after I got my degree in speech communications from Eastern Illinois University in Charleston if I wanted to come back and work for him. And so I did. And so we did anything from any type of retrofits, new construction. And then, like I said, about 14 years ago, I got a ad that I looked up in the paper, and it was from Regional Planning Commission of Champaign County, which is one of the agencies in the IWAP program. They were looking for HVAC contractors. And I thought, boy, that might be a good idea to look into. We had plenty of business going on, but I thought this would be a good idea to look into for kind of what we call the shoulder months. Shoulder months for HVAC could be March, April, May, and then possibly October, November. So anyway, I answered an ad, went to the information meeting, and I decided that we should try to be a contractor on the HVAC side for weatherization. And we did that for 10 years. And then I got a call to join them, or possibility to join them as a teacher and trainer. And that's where we are now. So yeah, I've had quite a bit of experience with weatherization. And now I'm starting my 4th year already with the teaching and training side.
Okay. Does your brother still own that business?
He does.
Do you do any work from time to time for it?
I mean, I help him out, like, if there's a weekend where he's gone and needs some consulting, I might help him out just because, I wouldn't be here without the experience that my brother gave me and his wife, my sister-in-law. They took a chance on me when I was just a little guy, even though my mom and dad basically forced him to make sure that, hey, don't forget about your little brother. He needs some work. We grew up on a farm. We still have our family farm. So it was just an opportunity that my brother took way back and made it very successful. And he's still operating as president and CEO of that company. So yeah, I help him every once in a while. We'll talk a little bit, but not near as much as obviously I did when I worked full time. So my priority is working with ICRT and IWAP. And if it's some time after hours or on a weekend, if I need to run out and help him, I will, but not very often.
What was it like being 13 and being in a job field like that?
Well, it's funny you ask that because he's 9 years older than I am. So I'm always his little brother. Well,
Hmm.
I had a lot of opportunities just to work around the farm. My uncle did most of the farming. My dad was an employee of the University of Illinois.
What kind of farm?
Grain. So we did soybeans and corn, and we had some livestock. My mom presently still lives there. My dad passed away about 13 years ago. So my uncle still runs the farm, and I help him now on weekends and evenings when we have the planting season and the harvest. So I still am a farmer at heart, and that's still my mom's income. So we've got to help. I've got two sisters also and my brother. But at 13, I was going into my freshman year, and I had an opportunity just to kind of work and detassel corn for a local company decalb. And I was kind of tired of doing that. I did that the previous year, and I told my mom and dad, I said, if I want to mess around with crops, I can just walk out the back door. We have our field right there. So they said, well, you're doing something because you've got to be able to earn some money. And so they just told my brother that I had to start helping him. So I didn't have my license. I had to follow him everywhere. Basically, I was kind of a glorified tool guy, right? Go get this, go get that. So it's a great industry because it's a trade that a lot of do-it-yourselfers don't feel comfortable doing. But at age 13, I didn't learn much, right? I just learned what I did take away from that at that early age was watching my brother succeed at 20 years old, 21 years old. It was amazing. And I thought, man, I'm only 13 and my brother's doing this. And today I can say he's still doing this at age, what is he, 59 years old, and he loves it every day. But it was intimidating working for my brother. And you can imagine, I don't know if you've worked for any family at all.
I work with my dad, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. And I do miss that. I do miss seeing my brother every day, working with my brother. My dad was able, when he retired, he came into the office like 1996 on until he passed. He came into the office basically every day and watched his two sons try to wrestle an alligator sometimes to get the business going. It was complete chaos because there's no time off. There's emergencies all the time, 7 days a week. Doesn't matter if you're out with your friends. Doesn't matter if you're at a family outing. It doesn't matter if you're at a game with your kids. You always had to be available on the phone and be available to go solve problems. So I don't miss all the emergencies that I had.
Yeah, that's really hard.
It's really hard because you can't.
You're on call. You're like a doctor.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So, yeah, I learned a lot when I first started, and like I said, when I went to college, he had an opening, and I came back. So evidently, he made a very big impact on me because I decided to follow that.
Must have been a lasting impression. Do you remember your first day on the job?
Yes. Very, very, very much so. My first day on the job, I came in and I'll never forget because we started at 8. And my dad always taught us kids, you go to work early and you stay late. So, of course, I got there like 7:45. And funny thing was he had to come pick me up because I didn't have my license.
I was going to say, did you drive?
No,
like, how did that work?
No, he was married, so he had to, and I lived out at the farm with mom and dad, and he had to come out 3 miles. We were only 3 miles out of town, so he came out there, and I was ready. I was ready to go, and got in his van, and he said, "Hey, listen, today is your first day. I get it. You're not going to know anything. Try to stay busy because I'm going to be doing this, getting this ready, going on." And we didn't have any cell phones. We had none of that. We had just a little pager that would page him when he had a call. So the industry and the technology has completely changed just back since 1989. So I got in the shop and I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I just remember my dad always saying too, if you don't have anything to do, pick up a broom. So I just started sweeping the shop. And he's like, all right, that was good. So I remember that just like it was yesterday. And then we went on to, he was getting his organization going on what calls we needed to do for that day. And out we went, and I met a lot of people, and he'd tell me to go grab a wrench. Luckily, my dad taught us a lot of tools before, so I knew what kind of tools we needed to do. But I think that day we fixed like 4 furnaces or no, it was air conditioning season. Sorry. We fixed 4 air conditioners that day. And I thought, wow, this is great because all the customers were so appreciative, right? Because they called because they didn't have any cooling.
Right.
And we came in and I felt like Superman at age 13.
In that moment, you're a lifesaver.
Yes.
Like you are their savior.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Nothing better than the guy that can fix your heat or air when you need it most.
Right. And that's what I talk about when I'm teaching with these students or the assessors, future assessors, and whoever else I talk to. I let them know that, I may know a lot, but I started out just fresh as can be, and to be able to want to learn, to be a sponge really helps out in any industry you want to work in. So yeah, that first day was like, wow, here we go.
Right. So just having a learning mindset.
Yes. You got to have an open mind. You got to be able to have the ability to want to learn, because there's nothing worse than somebody having to wake up every morning and regret going to work. And I, like I said, absolutely, there were some times that I didn't want to go work with my brother. Absolutely. But overall, I can't thank him enough. And like I said, my sister-in-law, because they both own the company, to take a little chance on a little brother and to see where I am today. I know that they're very proud of me, and I'm super proud of myself that I stuck it out and became what I am today. And I'm still learning every day. Like I said, the technology is just changing in the HVAC industry. So I have a lot of passion for it.
Yeah, that's pretty clear, I think. How long would you say before you were more than just like a caddy? You know what I mean? Like how long before you were doing work?
That's a great term. I like to golf, so I'm going to use that. How long was it before I kind of felt like I dug in my own, you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's see. That was 1989. So all through high school and college, I was a caddy. There's no doubt about it. He might have once, I think I got out of college. I sold insurance for one quick year. So 1999 is when I started full-time for him. But even at that, I was still not going out by myself. I still would go with him. But the thing about it was I learned when we went to Mrs. Jones's house, for instance, I figured out, I'd talk to him on the way to Mrs. Jones and be like, okay, what are we doing? Well, we're going to fix this furnace. So my mindset was, what tools can I get my brother while he's talking to the client to get things set? There's nothing worse than somebody just sitting there doing nothing, getting paid. So I tried to always think ahead. So I'd say in around 2000, he started getting more and more trust for me to do a few calls. Nothing major, but you got to remember, like I said, we didn't have cell phones. So if I got in trouble, I had to use the customer's phone. You can imagine, hey, Miss Jones, I need to call my brother to ask him a question. Do you mind if I use your phone?
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that. So, but no, he didn't set me up for failure. He just put me on some small calls. A lot of going to the shop to get tools that he might have not took with him, or going to the distributor to pick up materials. So I did a lot of that. And then I just kind of was like, okay, this job correlates with this tool. This job correlates with this. So I'd say in 2000 is when he started saying, okay, you're getting there. We're going to put you out in a few things, but don't forget it was my brother. So he didn't trust me until quite a few years later, but that was to be expected. Right.
So now that you're a trainer, do you follow a similar on-ramp approach, or do you think that it's best get your feet wet?
It depends, right? So what I try to do as a trainer is we always talk about know your audience, right? Know your audience. I don't care if my levels of experience for students are down here or up here. I want to be on a level playing field. So I ask questions before we get started. What's your level of experience? And I want them to not feel intimidated at all. But I believe that hands-on experience absolutely is the best way. I'm not going to put them in a situation where they would get shocked electrically or have a gas leak. We're trying to see where you are. What can you do? So I think that approach is, I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to do something to show the courage that you would have in whatever task I give you. But I don't want to just say, okay, we're going to throw you to the wolves. If you can't figure it out, guess what? Here you go. Good luck. I would never do that because I was not taught that way. So sometimes I feel like I might overteach because I want to make sure that they understand how important it is, because we deal with some very, very critical situations that could turn into more than just an accident. So I've got to be always on the safe side of things.
I mean, I think better to overteach than underteach. Yeah,
I agree. But I also want to give that opportunity for that student to try to figure out. There's nothing better than seeing, I coached sports for 25 years also. There's nothing better than to give a student or an athlete a plan and their eyes go wide open when they figure it out. Because that means you did your job. So that's what I like.
Because I think when you can make the pieces click in their mind versus just spoon feeding them, that's when the learning happens.
Right. And it gives me confidence that they can do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So back to being in the field, do you remember your toughest day in the field? Whatever that means to you.
Yes, I can almost tell you the address. I won't tell you the address, but I remember it was a crawl space in Gifford. And we had to get in this crawl space, and I think there was 16 inches of clearance between the dirt floor and the floor joists.
That's not much.
No, not at all. And I'm a pretty big fella. And even back then, I believe that was 2002. Great clients. I knew the clients. I went to school with one of their sons. I had to get all the way back into their crawl space because we had an issue with one of the registers had fell apart. My brother is a lot smaller than I am, but he was at a different job, and I had my own crew kind of at that time. And I didn't have the experienced crew yet to tell them to go underneath there. So I was underneath there, and I don't get claustrophobic because that's just, you learn that when you're in attics and tight spaces, confined spaces. That one, I can remember I tried to turn over. And as I turned over, I got kind of stuck. And that was not fun. I had to really calm myself down.
Right.
And then I just kind of backed out. I took a little break. But I remember that was probably one of the times where I thought, what am I doing here? I really wish I was broadcasting for the Cubs like I had went to school for and be Harry Carey, because I wouldn't have to worry about that. But that's some of the things that you got to be able to sacrifice when you're wanting to help others. I got the job done. It wasn't in a timely fashion because I had to talk myself up to getting back through there. But that was one of the toughest jobs I think I ever had. It wasn't like it was a mess. It was just the tightness and you can't move. So that was really tough.
Yeah. HVAC, do you deal with a lot of weather issues?
Yes.
As in like just you're outside?
Yes. So what we talk about is, and I use this example in class, when would you call if you needed your furnace worked on? When it didn't work, right? And typically it's always going to be in the cold weather. Well, we didn't talk about rain, snow, sleet, ice. That all can happen in the winter, right? So getting, people think, oh, you're in the HVAC business. That's cool. Well, pun intended, cool, right? No, because you called me because either your heat or your air doesn't work. So they think, well, you got to be working in the winter, you got to be working in the warmth. No, we come in there, we fix your furnace. Guess what? We got 10 others waiting to go. So we didn't ever really get to enjoy the heat when we fixed your furnace because we had to go on to the next one. Same thing with cooling. 100 degrees out. Guess where the outdoor air conditioner is? Outside. Doesn't matter if it's raining, didn't matter what was going on, but weather played a huge factor in everything we do. And think of an attic, in the summer, an attic where it's could be up to 130, 140 degrees. Not that we had to always go into an attic, but you have to sometimes because there's ductwork up there or the system's up there, and you got to be able to access that attic. So that was really tough too. So whether if you're not so much appreciative of the weather, HVAC, unfortunately, is not for you.
So, do you remember, was there ever like an event where a bunch of people's furnaces or ACs went out, whether that's a heat wave or a blizzard or, and you just had to you were just working all day?
Yes, I believe it was 2014, November of 2014, we had a tornado.
Oh,
It was the same day that Washington over by Peoria, Illinois had a tornado. We had a tornado hit like right at noon on a Sunday. And we only have 950 residents in the little town of Gifford. And it hit, I think there was over 40 homes got destroyed. Luckily, we had no deaths, not even really any injuries, because it was at 11 or right around noon. So everybody was very aware of what was going on. That turned into it was crazy. My home was hit a little bit, but nothing like our business. Our business was flattened. My brother's, all of the trucks had been moved that we stored at the shop. We had tools. This is no joke. We had tools and materials that flew over. We found it a mile or mile and a half away.
gosh.
And where do you start, right? So my cousins came with a big trailer and was like, "Hey, we're here. What can we do?" And it was in November, right? So it happened to be cool or warmer that day. But we have all these houses that now have no heat, no nothing. So that was very, very memorable. Fortunately, like I said, we got everything rebuilt within a couple years. So that was probably the biggest appreciation, but yet scary time to be in the HVAC industry, because a lot of people, we didn't have anything, no power for quite a few days. They wouldn't even let people that had no damage to the home back in town, because it was very dangerous. Power lines were down, gas lines were just flying, gas flying in the air. So that day, what I did is I tried to go around to many houses and just shut their gas off to their home, because I knew
Oh, yeah.
Nicor, our gas provider Nicor, couldn't get through. So that was just one thing that I did. Probably uh, not the safest thing I did, but I knew that I could do that with my ability. So that's what I chose to do. So, but that tornado,
Yeah.
that was unbelievable. So that was when the most people in an area had no heat.
hmm See, now that you mentioned turning off the gas, I think I do have a memory of this story. You rode around on like an ATV
Yep.
or something like that, right?
Yep. I tell that story almost every time, because when you talk about gas leaks, it's obviously very, very critical. But I just took my four-wheeler and I drove around town, and I could hear the gas coming out, because the house, obviously was moved or demolished, and it rips that line from the gas line. But if you don't manually shut that meter off outside, and it was all natural gas because we were all in town, it just flies all over the place. So I just went to everybody that I knew really well, which was a ton of people. I just went over there. I went towards the gas line. I was as cautious as I could be, took my little pipe wrench and just shut it off. It don't take very long to do that, but that was
hmm
something that I could do to make sure that I did something to help with the tragedy.
Yeah. So what's the biggest concern there? Is it breathing it in? Is it a spark?
Spark.
Okay.
You got raw gas just floating in the air. Luckily, we didn't have any fires in town from the tornado, but that was probably one of the biggest things that I was worried about. We also have a propane, a farming industry in town, and we had a lot of anhydrous tanks that are super flammable. But that side of town, luckily, didn't have hardly any damage. But that was one of the big things. They had a ton of fire departments just on standby, just in case. I didn't mess with that. That anhydrous is different. That's different
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not in on that. My uncle puts it in the
No.
ground on the farming, but I don't mess with that. So luckily that was we avoided that.
Yeah. What's a challenge that you don't think people realize that comes with HVAC?
Probably on troubleshooting. You get a call from Mrs. Jones. She says, "My furnace don't work." Well, there's so many things that it could be, right? There's so many different pieces and parts to a furnace. So that was probably the hardest and I can't expect Mrs. Jones to lead me to any belief on, okay, this is what it is. We got a lot of those calls. My heat don't work. And I would try to ask, is it blowing cold? I would get, my heat don't work. I'd say, what is your thermostat? Can you do anything with your thermostat? My heat don't work. Right. So that is very challenging because you're going to Mrs. Jones's house and you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. A lot of times, yes, we can figure it out, but there could be a noise that they hear. That's probably the worst call also. Well, this happens when the heat is on and we're there for maybe an hour and we can't hear none of it. And the homeowner goes, I knew it right when I called you guys. Nobody would hear it. And now they don't believe me. It happens. And so that's the most challenging is troubleshooting. We have one job, keep the heat in the house in the winter, keep the heat out of the house in the summer. And that's with heating and cooling, right? And it is very, very tough. So if you're really good at troubleshooting, you will never have an issue finding a job in this industry.
Mm-hmm. And as a trainer, what do you think is an unrecognized challenge?
That's a really good question. As a trainer, communicating with students. Again, you're trying to find out what they know, and you've got to turn them loose to be able to do tests on a furnace. So I remember this one student, and I always want to let them know, just be honest. If you don't understand something I'm saying, because sometimes I'll get into some HVAC talk. You completely understand that. Some of the terms that I talk about may not relate to people, right? So I remember this one student said, I talked about the furnace, and she said, all I can tell you is when I'm cold, I go over to this box and I turn this number up to where I feel like there's heat coming on. And when I'm hot, I go over there and I turn this thing up and I get cool. That was like, okay. Because then I asked some follow-up questions and she said that I think the unit that heats the house up is in the basement, but my dad told me that was a demon down there. So I never went down and messed with it. So I thought, okay, here we go. I'm going to really get my job task here is going to be difficult. Nope. She understood everything. So it's all about communication. Just let them understand that this is difficult, but we're not wanting to, luckily at my level of teaching, I don't have to teach troubleshooting, but I get into it a little bit because there's a lot of safety features that we could help the client with without getting the HVAC contractor involved. And so we do a little bit of troubleshooting, but communication is it. That is, how can I communicate to the students to help them understand instead of somebody just saying, oh yeah, I understand. And then they get out there and they don't have any idea what's going on.
Do you think that being a coach for so long has helped you with your communication skills?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was in high school, I wasn't a very good athlete, but I played every sport you could think of. And I gave it everything I had. And I'll never forget my high school coach. I go to church with him now. It's just full circle. And he told me, he said, you're going to be a great coach. And that's no disrespect to your athletic ability. It's how you can explain things, how you get so excited about teaching somebody and then seeing them succeed. So coaching, I would not be here without the coaching experience. And I miss the coaching experience, but I still go and watch my old high school that I coached, different kind of sports. I'm still involved with some of the athletes. I talk to them about their successes, how they're doing. I told my softball team when I first got hired, I have two jobs. One job is to make you understand that there's life outside of softball. And the other thing is to build a relationship with you to whenever you get married, I might get an invitation. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, there's so much above and beyond sports, but I use sports as a lot of an example. And it came full circle because I had two former athletes ask me, I've been to many weddings, but I actually got my officiant license and I did two of my former softball players'
Wow.
weddings. So sports is unbelievable. And right now with our University of Illinois going to the Final Four, it's madhouse around here. I'm going crazy. I love it. So back to your question, coaching absolutely prepared me to be able to become the teacher that I am.
That's really awesome, actually.
Yeah, I didn't expect, I expected the invitation to the wedding, but when they asked me, they said, Coach, do you mind? I'm not affiliated with a church. I want to be able to do this at a venue that I don't have a church. Would you be willing to be an officiant? I'm like, you know what? I asked you to do a lot of things for 4 years for me as a coach. That's the least I can do. I am absolutely privileged. Got online, got my certification, and yeah, I did it.
So are you still licensed?
Yes.
Or does that expire?
Nope, no expiration date.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yep. Yeah. So it was really neat.
Yeah, that's really cool. What sports did you coach besides softball?
I coached varsity softball. I coached my daughter. I coached her all in grade school and high school for golf. And then she got a golf scholarship, not because of Coach Dad. It was just she was the only golfer. So we had to have a coach. So I'm like, yep, I'll do it. So golf, softball, baseball, basketball. Yeah, those all the way through. When I graduated high school in 1993, I started coaching in 94.
Mostly high school sports?
A mix.
Okay.
I did a lot at our elementary school for quite a few years. So.
And was the athletics that you played in high school, was that what made you want to get into sports broadcasting?
Yes. Huge Cubs fan. And I thought,
okay.
I just thought, I've got, I love to talk, sometimes way too much, but I felt like I know sports because I had to try to know even more because I wasn't as athletic as my other friends, right? So if I wanted to get anything in sports, I needed to know above and beyond. And so I would watch the Cubs games with my grandfather every day after grade school because he lived there in town. I'd go over there and we'd just watch, and I just wanted to be involved in sports, and there was no better way than to be able to talk about it. So.
And you did try to pursue that in college, right? You mentioned.
I did. I actually, when Harry Carey passed away, I actually put a video or a audio tape together, sent it to the Chicago Cubs. So I can say that I tried to replace him. Obviously, we're here today, so I didn't make it, but that was okay. And, I can always say that I gave it my best.
And that's all it takes, really.
Yeah, and I do that. We have like what they call an EI baseball team here in the area, and the manager is one of my really good friends. So I do hit the play-by-play or PA in the summer. There's about seven home games, so I get my fix. And then a lot of times the high school will call and say, "Hey, we got senior night tonight. Do you mind coming over, introducing the players and doing the starting lineup?" Yep, I'll be there. So I do dabble a little bit with it. It's not anything at the professional level. It just kind of gives me my fix, right? I love, I still love that.
Would you ever consider having your own podcast or anything?
Absolutely, I would. Absolutely.
What would your podcast be about? I love asking people this.
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I when you asked me to be on this, I thought this is awesome. And I think that you've done a great job. But yeah,
Thank you.
Probably, I'd call it something crazy like sports and HVAC or so, I don't know, and then just go random. But like my wife tells me, she goes, yeah, just talk. But she says, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You can't just talk. You got to have, because she's done a podcast for her work. And, but yeah, it's intriguing to think about. But I want to make sure that I don't take time away from, what I'm hired to do for the home weatherization program. But I definitely think in the future I would love to do it.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
I'd listen to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really
just let me know whenever you get it started.
Yeah.
So back to IWAP, since we're circling back a little bit. What would you say your favorite part of working with IWAP has been?
Helping others.
Yeah.
Helping others. And that's what I explained to my students. We have got so many people that we need to help. And problem solvers. I said that earlier in the podcast. Problem solvers. Everybody should have a hat. Now, do we get to solve every problem to the degree that we need to 100%? No, because we've got limitations on what we can do. So I think that problem solving and helping others is exactly why we're all in this business. And I did that for my brother, right? We do that. And I did that for coaching. So there's nothing different in my eyes from working for my brother, coaching, or joining IWOP. It's just, we want to help others. And that's my passion. And I'm able to do that inside IWOP and focus just on IWOP with that. So that's what I enjoy the most.
What would you tell other HVAC professionals or anyone in the trades that might, convince them to join IWOP?
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually do teach the contractors on the HVAC side. When they join IWOP, they have to come through the training that we provide, and I happen to be the lead instructor on that. So I talk to them about that. And then I want them to reach out to other HVAC contractors, because this opportunity inside IWOP is unlike any other. When you're going to bid a job for Mrs. Jones non-weatherization, you've got to put a lot of time into that. With IWOP, we have already kind of have laid the forefront on pricing, and we're going to make sure that whatever job that we send out that qualifies, if I pick that contractor as a coordinator through IWOP, you're going to get it. There's no competition to bid that. It's guaranteed work. So to me, there's nothing better than not having to bid against 5 or 6 different contractors. Now, there are a few more requirements as a contractor through IWOP, like I said, training, but I'll tell you right now that any of the tests that we require through IWOP, they should be doing that whether it's a weatherization client or not. There's nothing that we require in IWOP that shouldn't be done on a single installation of any HVAC item. So I really hit on that too. When I'm going to talk to contractors that are kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm too busy, whatever. Blah, blah. Well, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to do this. This is an opportunity. Like I said, that's how I got started, right? Was the shoulder months. We were kind of downtime, and we wanted to have another opportunity to help others. And that's the only reason I joined as a contractor for IWOP. So I feel like I have a lot of, not authority. I have a lot of experiences that I can give to contractors to bring them on this program. And this program, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that need our help. And there's no better way than to get into the IWOP program where we can all benefit from this.
Yeah, it's a good place to make a real difference.
Absolutely. And if you didn't want to make a difference, you wouldn't be here today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I explained to them.
Right. So now that you've been in IWOP for a while, is there anything that you've learned through building science or home performance that maybe you've updated on your own home or your own systems, or, you wish you could take with you into HVAC?
Yes, absolutely. I moved 2 years ago to be closer to Champaign-Urbana, and exactly what I did. I have a crawl space, and it was a wet crawl space. And there's nothing more troubling than if you have a wet crawl space. So what did I do? Well, I did some research, talked to some of my coworkers, and I said, okay, I don't have any visqueen. I have vents in my crawl space. Well, in IWOP, we want to try to bring the crawl space into the thermal boundary. So I thought, here's an opportunity. I want to get rid of my water. There's a reason my water is going into my crawl space. So the first thing I did was the outside assessment. I looked and seen, where are my gutters draining? Well, I had uneven grade and it was pouring back. So I did a lot of landscape and extended my gutters first. Then I focused on the crawl space. And I actually, I have access with my brother's business to be able to use a lot of tools that a lot of homeowners can't use. So I just got down there, and the first thing I did was thought, I got to put a sump pump in my crawl space. They had no drain, no sump pump at all. Well, the water gets in there. I got to get it out. So I dug a sump pump, put in a sump pump pit and a sump pump and drain line to get it away. That was the first thing I did, which is a terrible job, by the way. You're in a 3.5 foot crawl space and you're digging down 2 feet. But little by little,
wet dirt.
Absolutely. So I did call a buddy because he owed me a favor, and I'm like, I got one for you. So
Time to cash this one in.
Absolutely. I put them in the back of my head, right? Don't forget. So I did that, and he learned a lot too. So I got that done first, ran that a little bit, made sure it was nice and dry, got everything dried up as completely as could be. Then I did the Visqueen. Before I did the Visqueen, like we do in IWAP, you want to put at least a 6 mil Visqueen, go up at least 6 inches to a foot on the side of the crawl space walls. I had block walls. I went and I sealed up my vents. So my thought was, okay, if I teach this, why would I not do this at my house? And I know it's going to improve it. So I did that. It was it took me about a month because I just did it in the weekends and the evenings, right? And got all that done. And then I called a contractor that I have had do insulation in the past. And I said, hey, I want you to do 2-part spray foam in my crawl space, in my box sill, and it'll seal up that Visqueen that goes up the side. So I did all that. I believe that was in November. And we had about 2.5 inches of rain the last day or two. I went down in my crawl space, and it's unbelievable what it did. There's no water. There's no issues. The sump pump does run, which it's supposed to. And it also, my ductwork's down there. So in the summer, I could go in there and I can tell that it's really temperature controlled now, because my ductwork doesn't sweat. So that was probably I get this now. I really get this. I'm helping teach this, and now I can use that as an example for the students and say, hey, I did this, and this is what I did. And it's helped my humidity, because I had high humidity in the house. It's helped. I still got to do some insulation in the attic and seal up, do a little bit more air sealing. But that was probably the number one thing that I learned from the building science that I didn't implement before I got into weatherization.
Yeah, I think before you go through building science, you don't know what you don't know. And then after, it's like so eye-opening. It's like, oh my gosh, I never would have done this.
Yeah. It can scare somebody because you think, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. That's going to cost me a fortune. You got to do it in layers, right? So that's what I chose to do. And so far it's paid off. Definitely.
What's the next project on the list?
Oh, I got to go up in my attic and air seal and insulate. It's ridiculous. But it was cool because I did a blower door number pre all my work in the crawl space, and then I did one after, and I took it down like my first blower door number was 2,600, and I have a 2,000 square foot home, which is fairly, that's a good number. That's fairly tight. I took it all the way down to 1,500 when I just did the crawl space.
Wow,
so I can't imagine
just
the crawl space. So I can only imagine what I can do if I do the attic.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight house.
Absolutely. And I also put an ashtray fan in. I forgot about that. So, and I run that continuously.
Yep. We recently installed one of those at my parents' house.
Yep.
Which was a whole thing.
Right. And I also upgraded when I first got here. In the fall, I upgraded to a heat pump, dual fuel heat pump system. So if I'm going to teach it, why wouldn't I have it?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's what I did.
Okay. I have a question for you that's going to kind of take us back. What would you tell 13-year-old Gary, knowing what you know now?
Boy, that's a great question, Madden. What would I tell 13-year-old Gary? I would say the exact same thing that my dad told me. Show up early, stay late, be a sponge, communicate well, and never think you know it all. I think those 4 or 5 things should be put on a shirt, a hat, a mirror in the morning, a note in your truck. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, they
trust
served
the
you
process.
Well. Yeah, for sure. I have a list of 20 random questions. I'm going to have you give me 3 numbers. I'll ask them to you just to kind of get to know you a little better. So go ahead and give me any 3 numbers between 1 and 20.
Let's start with 4, 8, and 20.
Okay, let's start with 4. What is your biggest non-academic, non-work related accomplishment?
Marrying the love of my life, my wife.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been married for?
We'll be 28 years in August.
Wow, congrats.
2 awesome daughters, too. That was why I paused. I couldn't tell which one would know.
Oh, no, it's like, which one's better?
Well, if it wasn't for my wife, we wouldn't have our kids, right? We all know that. So, yeah,
Right,
wife.
so-
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm very blessed.
Number 8
Okay.
is going to be, what is something that you want to accomplish before the year is over?
Let's see, what do I want to accomplish before the year is over? More communication with the contractors in Iowa. I want to try to take the circle. I know that we can't complete a circle. It's almost, but I don't want to go like this, and we're not going like this. I want to tighten that circle, and I think it starts with contractors because contractors are the lifeblood of our business in Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any strategies or ideas?
Yeah, I wanted to get a Zoom call together, maybe every other month, maybe every quarter, and just let them talk and say, here's what I'm seeing on a standpoint of everyday operation through weatherization, equipment changes, technology changes, and that way we can all talk as contractors and not be competing against each other and say, hey, up in northern Chicago, I'm seeing this. And a contractor from southern Illinois saying, hey, I see this down here. Well, in central Illinois, we don't see that. And then we collaborate and find out what is the best strategy. And then, make myself available, which I am available for all of them to call and email or text. But that's my number one goal before the end of the year.
Okay. How will you know when you've accomplished that goal, do you think?
Because when I have that, whatever timeline I do, seeing how many people join, right? And then I know it's gonna make me more available and probably make my workload more. But that's okay because, like I said, I want to try to help people and solve problems. So I think once I see that go. And I got to be very careful on timing of when I have that conference or Zoom because you've got to respect HVAC contractors' timeline. Again, they're in a 24/7 emergency situation. So I've got to be very creative and maybe have that on the shoulder months or I never would have that on a Monday morning. Because Monday mornings in the HVAC industry are a disaster. So probably respecting their time and seeing like a Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., right? Coffee with Gary. I don't know what you want to call it. HVAC coffee with Gary. I don't know. And just let them talk. Maybe that could
be your podcast.
That might be, now that you said that, Madden. I don't know. And that way I would give them an opportunity. I know at first it will be kind of bumpy and the people are like, I don't have time to this. I don't want to mess with this. But I've met a lot of fantastic people along this 4-year journey as a teacher and instructor, and contractors as well. So I think that I'll be able to make that happen. It's just, I've put that off too long. I've talked about doing this for probably 2 years now, and I just haven't put the stake in the ground, and I want to do that.
I think that's a really good goal.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Last question
Number 20.
For our random. What is the most legal, dangerous thing that you've ever done, and why did you do it?
Dangerous thing. Shutting off the gas during that tornado. We live next to a grade school. That gas line was a 2-pound system. I went over there. I could hear it was whistling from our house.
Oh my gosh.
And I told my wife, I said, there's no way we can get the gas company here in time. I said, that is one of the possibility of we could have a bad situation if anything sparked or whatever. So I just told my wife, I said, I'm going to call the superintendent. So I called him. I knew him real well. My wife was on the school board. I said, hey, I'm going to shut this gas line off to the school. I said, it is flying out of here. I could hear it whistling. Legally, I could do that because I was an HVAC in the industry, right? I took classes to make sure that I could deal with gas. So I told my wife, I said, you got to stay here right by the door, which was probably about 100 yards away. And I said, I don't want to scare you, but I'm taking a pipe wrench over there. And if I have a spark, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I just wanted to prepare her, but I didn't want to freak her out. Well, I'm pretty sure I freaked her out. And so I went over there. Yeah, just a little. I said, I want you to make sure that you see, So I went over there. I just did the common practice that I was taught by my brother in the industry. Shut that off. Everything was fine. So that was probably, and yeah, that was the most dangerous thing I've done in a long, and that I can remember right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
My gosh.
I mean, but also I want to make sure that it would take a spark, a pretty decent sized spark, but with the pressure that was coming out of that gas line, because it had to have so much more high pressure because it's feeding a school instead of a residence. It was a huge amount of gas coming out.
Yeah.
So, and the gas company, the gas company actually told me thank you, which is a lot.
Oh.
So, I didn't do it for that. I didn't do it for that. I did it for everybody else's safety. That's it.
No, it's always good to hear, though. I mean, that's something that shouldn't go unrecognized. So
that's what I did.
Wow. Well, I think that's actually a pretty good note to end on, but we do like to ask one last question.
Yes.
Which is, what is one thing that you want listeners to take away from this episode?
Again, the opportunity to help others and communication. I know that sounds like, that's kind of vague. If you want to help others, you've got to be able to communicate. So communication and helping others is what I like to provide when I speak or when I listen or when I teach. That's what I want to get across to people.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you for joining us today.
You did a great job. Thanks for having me as a guest. If you need me again sometime, I'd be more than happy to join. And awesome thing you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Listeners, thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Retrofit Radio Podcast. And you can watch these videos on YouTube at Retrofit Radio Podcast as well. And we will see you next time.